Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our anti-bullying week here at Pineapple Support. I am Jet Setting Jasmine, or Jasmine Johnson DaCosta, a sex worker and also a full-time psychotherapist, where I am partnering with Pineapple Support to provide mental health services as well as support groups and webinars like today's. So thank you so much for everyone that is participating today, and for those of you who will be joining us via recording to take a look at today's webinar. So we are talking about bullying. You kind of think that this stuff ends when you are in middle school, right? Or high school, that it comes to an end. But really, what happens to little bullies that are left untreated? They get computers and Wi-Fi, and they show up in our cyberspaces quite often, in fact. A lot of times untreated bullies as children just grow up to be adult bullies. So I wanted to talk a little bit about understanding what bullying is, what it can look like in the workplace, what it can look like in specifically for sex workers, cam models. I'll be using the term sex workers throughout, or adult entertainers throughout. And that's just anyone who enjoys and gets paid to sell sex and sexuality and sexual content and not safe for work content on the internet. So those are the folks that we're going to be centering today. But before we even start centering that, I really wanted to take a minute and talk about why people bully, who are these bullies, and then just a little bit of statistics around why it's so important for us to have these conversations as adults. I will say that in preparation for today's webinar, I combed a lot of the internet looking for information specific to sex workers and bullying. And I was really disappointed. There's not a whole lot of information that's out there. So much of the word bully is attached to children and childlike behavior, but not a lot talks about what happens when bullies get older and have more access to people to bully. So a couple of things. When we're using the word bullying today, we're going to it's a broad term for the sake of today's conversation, but I really want us to focus on any form of harassment, any form of behavior that is intended to make another person feel uncomfortable, unwelcomed, threatened. And so we're going to be using that term bullying, but it can be interchangeable with harassment, mistreatment, abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and those type of things, including financial abuse. And I use that because sometimes we have clients that bully us with dangling a carrot, getting our work, and then asking for a chargeback. So even that is misuse of our relationship online. So why do people bully? Here are some examples. When we have a better understanding of why people are doing the negative behavior that they're doing, I'm not saying that this gives us an opportunity to go like, oh, it's okay, I understand. It helps us understand what motivates that person, and it also helps us address the issue. So I am not sharing this from the perspective of having, we should always have empathy for people, but when someone is violating you, understanding their behavior is not necessarily from the place of for forgiveness and tolerating it. It is for understanding how to address it. So reasons why people bully: to gain social status. How many times does someone say something really awful and it gets retweeted and people come under it and go, I wish I would have thought of that first. Sort of that like mob mentality. And even myself, I have to check myself. I have some really awesome comebacks, but I have to oftentimes look and see, geez, is this hurtful? Am I talking about a topic, or am I talking about a human, a person? We should always be checking ourselves if we ourselves are participating in bullying behavior. And so I'll be using some self-disclosure throughout today's webinar as well. Sometimes people bully for attention. What do they say? Like, bad press is better than no press at all, or bad attention is better than no attention at all. Well, I beg to differ when it comes to bullying. However, oftentimes people who are mean-spirited get attention, and sometimes that attention is even positive. Oftentimes we give people who are mean-spirited and bully positive attention because we don't want it to be us. And that's when we see people aligning with abusers or aligning with people with poor behavior. Oftentimes it's poor socialization skills. And this can be incredibly important as well, especially in our work, where we don't know the context of the people that we're chatting with. We might have cultural difference, language barriers, age barriers, introduction to sex and sexuality issues. And sometimes that lack of socialization skills and lack of knowledge and awareness of behavior can lead to someone creating a very uncomfortable environment for the adult entertainer or the person on the other end of the bullying. Low self-esteem. We often see folks that bully are just trying to distract from their own their own shortcomings. When they are feeling small and they are not feeling that they have arrived and are doing the very best that they can be doing as an individual, sometimes they like to take attention away from themselves and point out what someone else's shortcomings are, or to make another person feel poorly because of how they feel about themselves. This in therapy would be considered a projection, right? Projecting how I feel about myself onto you. And in this case, it can become incredibly dangerous for that. Mostly when we're dealing with people, we have, again, no context of what's going on with them. It's a one-way street often. Many times people are replicating poor behavior from others. So monkey see, monkey do. And we do see this, as I mentioned earlier, kind of like that retweeting culture, right? Or tagging along, or jumping in to add an insult. So when we talk a little bit further into today's webinar about what we need to do to make sure that we are setting expectations across the board, it's where we help, like running into one bully and making sure that 10 others don't follow by helping them not replicate bad behavior. And finally, we live in a culture that bullying seems to be normal. I think that's important. Especially for those of us that are in the adult entertainment industry, where we are considered a marginalized and highly stigmatized community, where people look at us and have a lot of preconceived notions about our ability to make good decisions, our judgment in terms of the type of work that we do, an entitlement to our bodies, an entitlement to their opinions about our bodies. And we have kind of normalized that sex workers can be picked apart because we have unfortunately been so objectified that oftentimes our feelings as real human beings don't get put into any type of consideration. We see this with high-level celebrities as well. So if anything else, if you've got trolls, haters, and bullies, you are probably really shining. You are probably coming across as super confident, and you are probably coming off as someone whose attention is valuable. And we can really help train people on how to get that attention, how to have access to that confidence, and how to have access to the best of us without violating us. And we'll talk about how we can do that. But I just kind of want to get back to how our culture, just to give an example of how things like bullying around the LGBTQIA, how normal it was for in our everyday culture for people to use the term like "that's so gay" as a insult. And really that is very, very dangerous and inflammatory language. Or "you're such a geek," or "she's so slutty." Those type of things that people just say really, really casually have an impact. It really lets people know that it's normal to bully. It's normal to name call. It's okay to use homophobic slurs as common day language. And it's absolutely not okay for these things to happen. But I do think it's important for us to realize how normalized bullying is in our culture. So that way, when it happens to us, it can feel a little less personal. It can feel a little bit more like this is happening because we have allowed it in our culture versus this is happening because something may be wrong with me. We really want to work on not internalizing bullies, okay, or their behavior and the things that they say and do. Okay, so we hang out on the internet quite a lot as folks in the industry. And some websites really let anything goes type of environment where people can say what they want and there's not a lot of restrictions and monitoring. And then there are some environments that feel very well protected and secure for cam models and sex workers and fetish models and whatever the gamut of work that you do. So not all online platforms are inherently good or bad. It really does all depend on how they're used. We do notice that on certain platforms, they tend to be more attractive to people who want to spew negative comments, or that there's more of a kind of like a culture of dragging people, right? Or coming for them or attacking them. And then there are other platforms that there's a lower tolerance for negative behavior. I think it's important for us to look at where do we hang out online and how do we use these different platforms? Where does it feel the most comfortable for you to be the most vulnerable and feel the safest? Perhaps that's on a particular cam platform where you know that the moderators do a lot of screening for the people who come in and out of those spaces, where there is a really, really strong guideline on what is tolerated and what is not. Perhaps social media is like Twitter, for example, or Instagram is where you want to be a little bit more guarded with your content because people have more free access to say whatever it is that they want with little to no consequence. So kind of taking a moment and thinking about where do I tend to get treated the best or the worst? And how do I want to level that playing field for myself? That might mean I might program content on Twitter, but that might not be where I want to engage with folks. Maybe I only want to engage in a particular way and be very, very vulnerable behind a paywall or a subscription wall or somewhere that I can clearly block and delete. Or I can send it to support and they will read the nasty comments for me. All right, so kind of think about that. Where do I spend my time and how do I feel when I am spending time there? And is the audience that's on those platforms worthy of my time and attention based on how their behavior is around bullying? All right. If you have questions or thoughts, throw them in the chat. If you are watching this after and you have questions or thoughts, feel free to message me directly. My information will be below, as well as Pineapple Supports if you want to reach out to someone. All right, so things to remember. I want to give you some stats just to kind of like, couch this around things that are really, really happening in our industry. So sex workers are often exposed to high levels of violence and other abuse or harm. This is usually because we're working in criminalized environments, and I'll go ahead and add not unprotected environments. The research by Human Rights Watch and others indicate that decriminalization can help reduce crime, including sexual violence against sex workers. So what I found really important about this is that, just by being in the adult entertainment industry, you are at higher risk of violence, abuse, and harm. While this study may have been looking more closely at physical violence, as a therapist, I like to look at, and I think it's very important that we look at the things that precede physical violence. And oftentimes it starts with trolling, bullying, verbal and emotional abuse. And so when we allow something to simmer, so say someone messages you every single day, something very negative, or they cross your boundary. Maybe they're not even bullying you with terrible words, but they're not respecting your boundaries, which might be, don't message me anymore on this platform or something along those lines. That's the beginning of that violence. We also have to realize that not all violence starts with physical touch, somebody finding finding where you live or doxing you and that thing. Oftentimes it starts with these microaggressions in our cam rooms, in our direct messages, under our comments. And that's really where we want to stop that abuse right then and there. And we'll talk about the tools that are available for you to do that. Another stat, 60% of people that are bullied at work are women. That's a high percentage. And guess what? Sex work is work. And guess what else? The sex industry is comprised of majority of female performers or women identifying performers. So that means a lot of sex workers are being bullied at work. Okay. Not a safe environment, not the best way to get the sexiest content out of us. Research also indicates that persistent bullying can lead to or worsen fears of isolation, rejection, exclusion, and despair, as well as depression and anxiety, contributing to suicidal behavior. And this is the real crux of this. You know, it's one thing to have a bad day with one person making a negative comment. But when we're talking about sex workers and folks in the adult industry being exposed to high levels of this type of harassment, on top of the fact that it's an already marginalized and stigmatized style of work, we have to understand that our behavior online, what we receive, and for those of you that are consumers that are watching, what we put out towards cam models can really be contributing to some negative impacts to their mental health. Sex work alone can be already isolating, rejecting, exclusion, and have exclusionary and have an increase in our anxiety and depression. But being attacked verbally or, you know, in cyberspace, or even being concerned about your physical safety can really amplify that. And there's so many reasons why we want sex workers to have full, healthy lives and livelihoods. And that is because sex workers are human beings that have families, that have friends, that have purpose in this world. And I am certainly dedicated to protecting that purpose at all costs. All right. And finally, at present, there's no federal law. I think it's important for me to preface that I am here in the US, but there is no federal law directly addressing bullying. In some cases, bullying overlaps with discriminatory harassment, which is covered under the federal civil rights law, which is enforced by the Department of Education. Again, that direct relationship to children oftentimes when it comes to bullying, as well as the Department of Justice, which once it gets into the discriminatory harassment, sexual harassment aspects, then it is punishable by law. But it's a real slippery slope. A lot of states have not caught up to cybersecurity, cyberbullying, cyber harassment. And so it can make it really difficult to defend yourself legally, on top of the fact that to defend yourself legally as a adult entertainment person, you would then have to disclose you know, outwardly that you are being harassed in this particular workspace. So sometimes going from one dangerous spot to another, and we know how hard that can be. So it's not as easy as just saying, call the cops, someone is harassing you online. Oftentimes we have to kind of go through other measures to protect ourselves and to support ourselves, because like I mentioned, there isn't a direct federal law against bullying. Many times we have no idea where these people are even living to be able to enforce some of these laws. So let's get to some of the practical things that we can actually do when it comes to bullying. All right, here we go. First things first, understanding the laws and protections that are in your city, state, or country, and actually have them on hand. You know, I like to keep a little kind of like a little blurb about my personal boundaries. And I like to keep it handy. So when I'm on cam or I'm engaging with clients, I don't have to get flustered. I can actually say, do you know in the state of Florida that would be considered sexual harassment? I suggest that you stop doing that right now. Okay, so just, you know, having a little piece of backing, because it may be dangerous for you, of course, to report to authorities sometimes, you know, or expose where you work. But guess what? Your clients don't want to be exposed either. And oftentimes I will even let them know that, oh, I would like to let you know that this platform will will have to expose your IP address if I report that you have been harassing me. And sometimes that actually helps, letting them know like, whoa, I am not as invisible and anonymous as I may have thought. Okay. Know what tools you have available to you before you even get on, before you jump on cam. Know how to use that mute button, know how to block a person, know the difference between restricting them, blocking them, muting them, excommunicating them forever from your cam shows, and reporting. Understand that when you report on a platform, what's going to happen, how is it going to be handled. It is important that you understand on every single platform that you're on what your rights are and what tools are available to you to stop the bullying immediately. I continue to stress the importance of not letting even the first time slide, because you wind up setting a precedent for others that are in your space. And as we mentioned earlier, oftentimes bullies are created as a product of other bullies. They're just followers. And also setting the stage for your expectation around for clients in your space. So knowing what those tools are, even on Zoom, I know where the feature is to quickly remove someone, to mute it, to turn off my camera. Any platform that I am on, I try to prepare for trolls, because there often the rise that they get is making you feel flustered, out of control, powerless, and uncomfortable. If that is not the definition of abuse, and you know, some of the really key cornerstones of what abusers tend to do, and I think you're starting to make the connection between abuse, harassment, and bullying. Oftentimes these things are kind of set apart, but they have so many really clear overlaps. All right, other things are having a pre-work ritual to deal with anticipated stress. If you're feeling good and grounded and confident in yourself, you're feeling prepared for work, you can actually deal with stressors a lot easier than going into work already feeling flustered, not feeling grounded within yourself, not feeling secure in yourself, or strong about the work that you are about to do. That could allow someone to get under your skin a lot easier. And so something that I suggest is maybe having a positive playlist, a playlist that makes you feel good if music is your thing, or reading a page from a book if reading is your thing. Kind of think of which senses you like to be engaged and are calming to you prior to starting your workday, and really, really build in time, maybe an hour or 30 minutes before, making sure that you do this feel good routine or ritual. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to work for you. For me, I have to eat before I get online. I got to make sure my belly is full, because if it's not, I might be the bully. So figuring out what works for you. Working on your limits for that day. Maybe, you know, someone is into, maybe the type of work that you do is playing a character that is more submissive, or that is open to humiliation, or is open to being talked to in a very, very explicit way. If that's your thing, that's awesome. But you know, you can change those boundaries based on how you're feeling at any point in time. And so it's important to do a check-in for yourself. Today, what are my boundaries? Today, am I okay with being called X, Y, and Z? And if you're not, maybe that's going to help you determine which platform you get on, how you label your show, what you say as a disclaimer in advance, what you have rolling across that ticker when you're on. Maybe the little mantra that you may need to say a couple of times through the show. Just so you all know, today is not the day for humiliation. Check back with me on Friday. What we're focusing on today is edge play. So go ahead and get your toys out and let's get started. Okay. Being really, really, really mindful of what you can take and not take for the day. And I think this is part of the great parts about sex work, is that we do have a lot of flexibility. And so since we do have a lot of flexibility and we tend to be our own bosses, it's like, make some boss moves and identify what you will and will not tolerate in your store for today. Okay. Let's see. Make sure you have something planned to look forward to at the end of your shift. Again, doesn't need to be expensive and grand. Maybe you're the type that like, I know exactly what I'm going to eat as soon as I'm off cam, or I'm going to have a phone call with a really, really amazing person when I get off of work, or I'm going to go get in my bed and cuddle with my pillows, whatever it is. Give yourself something to look forward to. That can oftentimes help you navigate stressful situations at work because we know that it's going to end soon. And when it ends, you're going to take care of yourself. Okay. During, what do we do during? We're doing a show, we're on one of our lives, and we are worried about people misbehaving and throwing off our entire day. I'm just going to break for 1 second and take a quick sip of my drink. All right. Set the rules of engagement early. I mentioned opening up your show or your engagement or your live with being super, super clear with the expectations of your guests. What's going to happen when we do that is we set the stage. We pretty much let them know, if you violate me, I am going to do this, block you. And we also let our folks, kind of like our core community know, I may need your help with regulating anyone who's not following these rules. I have learned since setting my boundaries really, really early and fast, that at this point in time in my career, my fans and friends will respond to bullies for me because they know it is not allowed in Jasmine's world. And they actually care about me and want to keep me safe too. And the way that we can help build that community is by letting them know what we expect from our clients and how they can help us with creating and maintaining a safe environment. Because guess what? If somebody's bullying you, mistreating you, or using abusive or foul language, you're not going to give your best. You can't. It's not fair for you to have to. So that takes away from the entire community. And it puts us in a space where maybe we're not going to be as vulnerable. So our other fans and friends who enjoy our work, they don't want that. And they will help support and protect you if you set those rules of engagement. I advise that you put a little ticker or a little disclaimer in your show description or at the top, a pinned note about your rules of engagement. So if people join in later, they can be held to the same standards, and you don't have to keep stopping your show to give the rules. You can just say, hey, for those of you who joined in the last 10 minutes, please take a look at the pinned rules of engagement for tonight's show. Okay, those type of things. It's important to have a moderator whenever possible, so you don't have to read the ugly comments and messages or like take your hands from doing your work and block someone. You really want to be able to zone into your show or into your engagement, your live with your clients. So I would suggest that try to have a moderator, maybe a volunteer moderator, or taking a percentage of your earnings to have someone support you. It may even be valuable. And if you are interested in this resource, please feel free to ping me. I am working with some amazing content creators and career developers on using some of the some other admin skills to help performers focus on performing. So what this looks like for my company is you just get to perform, and one of us read the comments, one of us goes and looks at your social media and gets rid of the stuff that is not going to serve you in a positive way and allows you to stay out of that negative rabbit hole. So there are actually services and supports that are available to help everyone from celebrities to our porn celebrities or our cam celebrities, our adult entertainment workers, to be able to not be exposed to some of the riffraff that is online that might be difficult for you to ingest first thing in the morning or right before a shift or right after. So moderators across the board. Don't forget to take breaks. Take breaks. Just how I said to you, give me a minute. Let me take a sip of my drink. It's so important for us to take care of ourselves when we are in potentially high stress environments. You're performing, you're doing tech at the same time, you're doing lighting and cameras, and you are also probably doing something pretty amazing with your body, right? So all of these things are happening, and you need to field the emotional aspects of perhaps being called names or just demands being made of you. So it is really important to pace yourself. I find it really helpful that when I'm on cam is that every 20 minutes, just having having a little quiet alarm, which beeps and lets me know, okay, guys, I'm going to just take one or two moments off camera for a second, and I'll be right back with whatever we're going into next. That moment gives me a chance to just do this. I'm doing a good job. I'm sexy. I'm worthy. I'm valuable. Get back in there. All right. Give yourself a minute to check in. Sometimes you're not going to be able to respond to every single thing that's happening, or you do want to respond, but you need a moment to gather yourself. And having built-in breaks allows you to do that. Okay. Remember, don't make exceptions, because an exception for one teaches the other. So the earlier you can nip that behavior in the bud and do it really openly and decisively, you are going to set the stage for others. So that may look like, I don't know, person 1, 2, 3, the type of language that you're using is not allowed. You are currently being suspended from this show. Doing it and moving forward. It sets an example, it protects you, and it really, really will make sure that others understand what the consequences are for crossing you. It's also okay to discuss your emotions. Normalize being a whole human. Part of the reason why people choose to bully adult entertainment folks is because they think they can, because they have objectified us to a non-human status. And one of the things that we can do is retrain folks to see us as the full humans that we are. And the way that we do that is by doing human things. So I may say, I see somebody in the chat, I might say to that person, so-and-so, I won't say their name, so-and-so, you hurt my feelings with that comment. Not only did you hurt my feelings, but you crossed my boundaries, and now I have to suspend you. What that lets people know is that I feel just how you feel. When someone says something mean and nasty to you, it actually hurts my feelings. And I think it is important. Again, just because I shared you hurt my feelings doesn't mean that we stop there. I still hold you to those consequences. But normalizing how you feel, I think really does go a long way with people who sometimes think like, we're just like inanimate objects there for only their entertainment. I also suggest maybe keeping a little notepad or asking your moderator to keep a notepad, or, like little notes on your phone. Sometimes we can't quite get into the chat room to take the person and ban them. But if I just make a quick note that it was at jerk 124, later at the end, I can go back and make sure I block that person. I may even want to look for their username or their email or what have you across other platforms. Again, this seems like if it's too much admin work or too much labor, it might be something that you want to delegate to another source to do that for you. All right. And then after work, how do we take care of ourselves when it's all over? The bullying has occurred, or you've been really anxious about it happening, and it didn't occur, but nevertheless, we should be checking in on our self-care. After the shift is over, check in on your feelings. What felt really good about that? What felt really shitty? What didn't sit well with me? Sometimes in the middle of a performance, you don't have all the time to check in with your feelings, or it wouldn't be appropriate for you to just stop and do a complete assessment of your feelings and thoughts right in that moment. But afterwards, please allot yourself. So if your shift is going to be from 2 to 4, remember, we're building in time on the front end. So your shift is really 1:30 to 4:30, right? That before and after care. It's important that when you are writing, your calendar, your schedule for the week, that you schedule in that before time and after time, so you don't cheat yourself of what you need to be able to do a good job and to take care of yourself emotionally and physically. Survey your feelings and then sit with them. It's okay to sit with them. That didn't make me feel good. Could I have blocked that person sooner? Should I have cursed them out? Am I okay with how I handled it? Reaffirm yourself. What they said is actually so far from the truth. That did hurt my feelings that someone would say that, but what even hurts my feelings more is that that's not even true of me, right? So it's okay for you to sit down and to reaffirm the truth for yourself. Don't let bullies have the last word within your psyche, because that will be the revolving thought for quite some time. Set up a routine, as mentioned before, giving yourself something to look forward to. Maybe that is grabbing a bite right after or cuddling with your favorite blanket. Build that time in to take care of yourself after being so incredibly vulnerable to an audience that may not be very sensitive or thoughtful to you. All right, so a couple of other little notes before we open up for questions or we close for the day. Some other coping mechanisms are making sure that you have regular mental health support. It is important in our industry that we are taking care of our mental hygiene as well as our physical hygiene, because we are transferring energy, thoughts, ideas, sharing our most intimate moments with oftentimes the general public, and that can take quite a toll on us. It's important that we have a safe outlet to talk about work, to center ourselves in the conversation about how our work makes us feel, how people in our workplace make us feel, and to also make sure that we have appropriate coping mechanisms for those feelings. Mental health support can come in the form of a lot of different ways. Some people choose an informal route where they maybe have a group of other sex worker friends that they link up with. Or have like I know at the BIPOC Adult Industry Collective, every Monday we have a working time, a working cafe where we all get on, and it's a good time to connect with other people and let them know, like, I had a really shady client today and he made me feel really gross and I just want to let that out. Some more formal networks would be like a support group. Pineapple Support hosts some amazing support groups, weekly support groups, in fact, to manage stress, anxiety, all of the things that we encounter as just regular humans. But it is so awesome to be supported by sex worker friendly therapists and also surrounded by our peers that totally get it and will never ask you to like leave your job, because that's not the problem. The bullies are the problem, right? So I really, really hope that if you are not seeing a therapist regularly for your mental health care, remember, you don't have to be in crisis to have the support of a therapist. This is really about preventing crises and also having a plan to sustain your mental wellness. So just remember, you have a great resource list on Pineapple Support of adult industry friendly, kink friendly, lifestyle friendly, all the friendlies, LGBTQIA friendly therapists. And for those that may need some financial support with accessing mental health care, Pineapple Support can help guide you with that, whether it is through the support groups or supplementing your mental health care. So there are some resources that are available to sex workers to be able to process some of the things that happen online. Finally, for those of you who work for larger platforms, if you feel like, take a look at the terms of use. Many of the, oh goodness, I'm getting tongue tied. Oftentimes we read the terms of use as the cam model, right? Or the worker. And we don't look at the terms of use for the client or the audience, the viewer. It is important for us to look at what that platform is holding its users to. The reason why I say that is important is because, one, it's very easy to communicate to the person, not only did you violate me, but you also violated the standards of this platform. This platform does not allow abusive language or what have you. And you can point that person to the terms of service. You can also uphold the company to those terms of service. I have heard from some models where they have been repeatedly put in unsafe situations because a company has chosen not to block someone who is violating the terms of service. And those are places that we don't want to hang out at. So it is important that you know what those terms of service are. You hold your members accountable to upholding those standards, and you also hold the company accountable to enforcing those standards. This is so important because guess what? If you're not there, you're not making the money for the company, and you're not providing the service that the client is coming there for. So you are so important and you have so much negotiation power. I beg of you to use it, because as we all push back as individuals on how we want to be treated on these online platforms, we make it safer for everyone. We make it safer for our colleagues. We make it safer for our friends and families that want to like hang on and get some sexy time online. Nobody wants to read someone insulting your favorite adult star. So not only do we make it safer for ourselves and our colleagues, but we make it safer for the general industry, those who enjoy adult entertainment, by pushing back against these folks who more likely than not are just projecting their own insecurities on you. And finally, I want to share how important it is to recognize that oftentimes bullying can escalate. And when bullying escalates, that's when we get into some of the forms of more involved violence and or stalking, harassment, doxing, and things of that sort. So making sure that your computers, your internet connections, your phones, all your devices are secure. So this person or these people will not have added access to you. Only what you're willing to share can be shared. Making sure that your government name is safeguarded and other private information, that you are using good, safe passwords, and maybe take a class on cybersecurity. There's plenty of resources that are out there for sex workers and the general public, that you're safeguarding your personal identity, because sometimes a troll's comments can continue to carry on into some more dangerous behavior. So I hope these tools that I have shared with you, as well as some understanding around bullying and the need for cyber safety, was helpful. I wish you a happy anti-bullying week. I look forward to hearing how you were able to use these tips, as well as sharing more. So wherever you're watching this, if you have some tools that work really well for you, please continue to pour into our community by sharing them below. If you think that there is maybe a new sex worker, new adult entertainment star that can use this pep talk, please share it with them, because oftentimes it's not until we've had a bad situation that we start looking for resources. It would be so valuable to start your career or to start your day with some protections like we've shared here. Thank you so much to Pineapple Support for having me, allowing me to express what is really, really important to me, which is keeping sex workers safe, and also keeping our other fans, friends, and families that enjoy adult entertainment safe as well. And conversations like this allow us to do that. So thank you so much, Pineapple Support, for hosting me. Thank you all for listening in. I am Jet Setting Jasmine, and you can find more of me at jetsettingjasmine.com, as well as bluepearltherapy.org. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.